Hello everyone, how's it going today? I'm going to be showcasing the Nanotech robot effect, which I posted yesterday? Yes, yesterday. Now this effect, I'm gonna wait until a few more people join the stream before I get moving, but this effect was old. This is probably 2 years old at the moment, 1 or 2 years old. But I made it a long time ago. I've upgraded it a few times since then because geometry nodes made the 3D effect better than it was previously. So, and hopefully once Blender 4.0 comes out, I can make this even better due to some parallax mapping that may be coming with Eevee next. So, I'll wait just a little bit longer. I'll let you guys take a look. Make your guesses on how it works in the meantime. But yeah, I'll give you a brief rundown on how to do it and how you can make this yourself. Because everything you need to make this is free. Technically. Technically, yeah. But yes, this effect is known as my kind of layer shader displacement, which is, sorry, I'm tripping over my words, but it's free on Gumroad currently. The link to my Gumroad's in the description. If you see the Eevee shader displacement effect, you can see that. But the way it works is very interesting. If I zoom in a lot, you'll start to see the effect break down. Here, you may be able to see layers. So this is how the effect works. It's just a ton of versions of the geometry, if I go like this. Tons of versions of the geometry just layered up on top of each other. And I can choose how many layers I want. Let me select these. So here, let's put like 7 layers here. You could clearly see them. But as I turn it up, we get more and more layers until it looks good. Now the problem is it's not foolproof. There are some errors that occur, like if you look at it at an angle, things break down. And the more layers you have, the laggier it gets because alpha planes are notoriously slow in Eevee and also cycles. If I were to switch to cycles right now, you would see that some of these are just appearing to be black. You need to turn up the transparency passes on this for it to look right, but then it slows down massively, so I wouldn't recommend it all too much. Let's go back into Eevee where it's much faster. So this effect, it's cool, but not the most practical, which is why I haven't used it too much. But let me show you how it works in the shader editor. So in this case, we can see that the effect, it does that cool transitionary thing. But in reality, under the hood, it's just a texture like this that we can see as another texture goes over it. It transitions to another phase of it, which is very cool, very interesting. But this is treated as a height map, as we can see here, that is then put into the bump node and then the shader displacement thingy that's in here. Basically, it says, hey, according to the height, either reveal or alpha, or make transparent some of the layers as you go along. So I could set the apparent strength, and you could see, if you look very closely, the layers being revealed as it goes up or down. So in reality, this is just a texture that I turned from 2D to 3D, and that's how it works. In the nodes back here, it is a little bit old, but I can break it down a little bit. There's a gradient. Let's see, can we see what goes on here? Yeah, there we go. You can see that it kind of transitions. I have a magic texture which delays it and all of that. If I do that, and then I put down the y-axis to move the UV map, which I also move it with the noise texture. But all that is to move the main Voronoi texture and change the phase over time, what pattern it has. And that drives the height map for this, which works quite well once it decides to finally load. In just a few moments, there we go. Since it is now loaded, it works quite well. I have another version of this that I would like to show you. One that I like a little bit more. It's not quite as static. So let's open. Don't save. Let's go. Let's see. Let's look up Nano. let's see, version 2. Here we are. So this version, I'll let it load up. I wish it was still in the RAM, but it'll take a little bit. So this version is also, I made it the day after I made the original, all that time ago. But here we can see, it does more than just switching the phase. It switches the entire color and all that. Which, under the hood, it's just doing the same thing as before. I just changed up some of the gradients. So let me show you an example. So first of all, let me disable the shader displacement, or the EV shader displacement, the technique that I made. And this is what's happening. That's what's happening under the hood. So we can see that as this kind of gradient goes along, it switches between one color and one pattern to another, but it also moves the UV map a little bit to make it look like the pattern is sliding into place. You could see the math behind it here, even though it's not all too pretty. Because remember, this is about 2 years old right now, so it's not exactly the best in the business. I haven't upgraded it to my fine knowledge of shader nodes and all that. But the real magic in this one is, since I have the gradient from the bottom to the top layers due to the geometry nodes I've set up, if I turn off the offset for it, we can see, just wait for it, that it is all even. It all happens on the same plane, which when I first looked at it, I was like, that doesn't look all too great. It's just a very harsh cutoff. But if I make it so that the gradient change happens differently, according to where it is in the depth, then all of a sudden it looks really, really cool. And I could make that way too powerful, which is, you know, fairly cool in itself. I think it kind of go into place and then take over. Interesting. But I decided to keep it a little bit lower, just so that it was, you know, my vision for it. But this is the part where I realized, oh, quite a few very cool effects people want to do are not necessarily limited by their skill or creativity. It's the hardware. Because with this, I am cheating in order to get details that would take millions and millions of polygons in order to create. Because all of this, like, just imagine how many polygons you would need just to represent this. Like, just this, like, I was going to say square inch, but, you know, since this is in the virtual world, measurements are difficult. Yeah. So shaders are the best that we have at the moment. And I cannot do this with geometry nodes, because it would be, again, way too slow. Like, seeing all of this, you can't make those little... I guess those are kind of errors because of the layering. Yeah. But it would take way too much geometry to try to do that. And here there is no moving geometry, it's just a shader moving across the plane. So again, I'll show you here's the Voronoi texture. Then I have the colors. I have it so that when the UV map moves, it's just, oh, you move it, and then the texture goes along with it. Which is quite cool. Then I have that color, the color map. So it's like that under the hood, then I color it. That happens. Yeah, here's the other height map as well. You can make the height map whatever you want. It could even be an image texture, but I decided to make it procedurally, which does make it a bit bigger of a thing. Maybe I should, you know, show you what all of this does. So this is the main gradient to offset the, in this case, the Voronoi texture. So this part is like, oh, here's the gradient to offset it by. This adds it to the UV map, and then this mixes it up a little bit just so that the changing is not entirely straight. It has a little bit of warble to it. Then this part right here is just so that the UV map kind of slides a little bit, as you can see there. It just slides into place like that after the transition period. Then this is the actual Voronoi texture. This is just so that you could get some of the, whoops, the mini waves, the mini little bumps in there. It's not necessary, but it looks cooler, so I added it. And then the height map is plugged into the bump and several other things, along with the shader displacement, which I should note is up on Gumroad for free. This file is also up on Gumroad, but it is paid, just to let you know. But yeah, people were wondering how I did this, so I just wanted to explain it very quickly. So yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat, because that really is the entire effect. There's not too much else to go over. There is another version, version 3. So let me look that up right now. I think I put that in, but it's basically an optimized version with a few little changes. You could see how much... I was going to say how much simpler it is, but that would be a lie. It's not simpler. But you can see, you know, that I changed the gradient offset to be straight to have a lot of noise involved in it, which doesn't look that great in hindsight. So maybe there's a reason why, yeah. If I didn't include it in the... No, it is in the Gumroad file, I'm pretty sure. But it is kind of iffy, which is why I didn't finalize it, I guess. Or advertise it. So shaders can be animated, yes. In pretty much any 3D engine, shaders can be animated. It's an essential part of 3D art. Like any game you play, whenever there's something animated, that's most likely the shader, because animating geometry, unless it's like a rigged character, is extremely expensive. Here we go. Yep, so that is that. Alright, I do not know exactly what to do next. I guess I'll try to apply the effect to another object, just to showcase. So with this, I'll apply the geometry node, shader shell displacement, just like that. But we need to also put in the robot shader. The UV maps are a little bit messed up, but you could see the pattern, which happens here, and the layers. The layer offset. So let me just reduce the layer distance by a good amount so that it looks a bit better. Let me scale down the UV map by a considerable amount. So now we can see, if I go over here, let's increase the distance. There we go. So now we can see the effect transitioning on just a plane. Nothing too fancy. Even though it does look very, very cool, even still. I could change the pattern for the offset. In this case, I just had that. Oh, I didn't even have the that part plugged in. I think I know why, but let's plug it in. And I may have messed this up big time. I don't think so. There we go. Oh, let's wait for it to compile once again. So here we go. Since we added in the noise texture to the offset gradient, we can now see it's almost blurred in a sense because it is so small. But if we make it bigger, we can see that pattern is happening, which looks pretty cool. You can see that the mesh just doesn't look quite right, and that's because sometimes the layers are a little too thin, shall we say. There we go. I'm turning off the gradient offset part and just having that kind of part. Even though I think the layer offset is quite a bit better. Yeah. You can see it kind of rise up rather than just appear. But let's try, I want to try... Let me delete a good amount of this, just to play around with it. See what can be done. So this is the effect just being moved over by that. Let me also get rid of the noise texture, just to clean it up by a lot. There we go. So this just offsets the location, even though I should just have like a vector add node there. But here we can see that part happening, but I want to add, let's do that again. Let's try a brick texture. Let's have it be dependent on the UV map. Input UV map. Let's also multiply the output so that I can say, hey, affect it this much. There we are. So let's go and multiply this, and I have to multiply it by a lot. Let's do 500. Can we see it happening now? Not really. What went wrong? Oh, wait. I'm multiplying the effectiveness, not the scale. My bad, folks. So I need to turn down the... Oh, all UV maps must be labeled. That's another little caveat. Because of something, a bug in Blender 2.9, well, 3.0 to 3.5, the UV maps must be labeled because for some reason geometry nodes, when it's set, does not auto set the UV map. It kind of gets lost. So you have to do it manually, which is very, very nice to have to do each time. Where is the... Ah, there we go. Oh, that looks pretty cool. Pretty cool. Huh. I kind of want to also add in the gradient offset to it. Let me do that as well. Let's get the attribute. And I set in here a gradient attribute, which will basically give you the gradient of the layer. So, gradients, there we go. Plug that into here. Actually, I should take a look at it. Just like this. So you can see the bottom layers are dark, while the top layers are light. That's set inside geometry nodes, and you don't need to change it, so don't worry about it. But if I plug that into there, and then take a look at the output. Take a look. And now that we have that plugged into here, we should see, there we go, some of the parts falling into place. But I want this to be subtracted so that they rise into place. Let's turn up the mortar smoothness by as much as it can, because that might look even cooler. Let's make it so that it happens faster. Yeah, that's pretty cool. How does it look on the main one? Very chunky. Which I guess could look very cool, but maybe not in this situation. Could also set what the different... Oh, that's the factor. No, I want the color put into there. So this will make it so that part of it is a little more random. Let's make the bias 0.5 so that... That's interesting. And just to show you guys the texture underneath, this is the texture. I want it to be maybe more like that would be better. But this could be any texture of your choice. You just need to make sure that it looks good, which is easier said than done. Let me try another texture. Let's try just a regular Voronoi, 2 dimensions of noise. Then I'll plug it, whoops, let's disconnect that one and connect this one. Let's delete that. Put it right here. So let's scale it up. And here we can see we have the dots appearing, which that may look really good, but might also look like kind of gross, potentially. Let's change it to Michowski, or what is it? Mikowski. Now you get this kind of star pattern appearing, which I think looks fairly good, fairly interesting. But if we turn this up, we can see that it turns more into squares over time, which I kind of like that, the kind of pixels disappearing. And there you go. Scaled up, do all that. Doesn't look quite as good like that. Let me just lower it a bit. F1 smooth. I kind of want to stay away from F1 smooth because it is very resource intensive. But here, that looks pretty cool in motion. Almost scaly in a sense. There you go. Now you could see like the really cubular version of it. If I disable the gradient or the height offset, then we just have that happening, which doesn't look quite as good. Yeah, F1 Smooth is one of the most expensive Voronoi patterns out there. Do you know why that is? I'm not sure. I guess since the blurring is kind of faked, I guess they have to do like a lot of math calculations for it. Because it has to see like all the... Oh, wow, that is trippy. Seeing the phase move, but it's like kind of moving, kind of not. That is really trippy. Really cool. Like, look at that. Wow. Let's change that to negative. So it kind of reveals over time. Interesting. But yeah, so many interesting patterns can emerge. Let's see, how does that look on there? Very interesting. Let's try some other textures. What other textures have unique patterns? There is noise, so I'll try that. But the only, like, real options are noise, Voronoi, and then magic. And brick. Let's not forget about brick. There we go, let's take another look at this. Musgrave is... I found that noise with roughness tends to look quite a bit like Musgrave. Scrave. Here we go. Here's noise, which let's keep the detail relatively low. If you guys don't know, noise, once you set the detail to be higher, is more expensive. I found that, like, 12's okay, but once you go above that, it gets, kind of, not necessarily exponentially more expensive, but starts getting a lot worse. Let's turn up the roughness. Ooh, this will look... Yeah, it looks like it's kind of sand, I guess, which is very interesting. So if you ever wanted your nanotech robot to appear out of sand, it could look good. Eevee Next? No, this was able to be done in Blender 2.9. Well, I had to really hack it into place, but now with geometry nodes, it's a lot simpler. So for those of you who have just joined, the way that this works is layers. So if I zoom in far enough, you'll start to see, if I get the angle right, you'll start to see that this is made up of layers of geometry that simply get revealed through alpha or become opaque based on the texture. So it looks like there's height, but in reality, it's a bit of a lie, a cheat. Here, there you go. Now you can see the layers quite well. But when, you know, you have enough detail, they kind of get lost. But you can't argue with the results. They look quite good. Let's turn down the, that. Ooh, that looks very interesting. The shape morphing over time. Very, very interesting. And this is just by changing the gradient that offsets the main UV map. And then everything beyond that is just, you know, the height map texture. So it takes a height map and then converts it, like parallax or something along those lines, into geometry, or into a 3D effect that's reliant on the layers of geometry that exist. Let me just do this even more. Let's set that to like 2. I want to see just how far I can push it. That is trippy. I really, really like it. I could turn up the detail. So that, yeah, it basically turned into sand. So let's turn it down a little bit more. Again, extremely trippy. Very interesting. A little bit gross. So let's go back to the sand. So it reforms over time. But yeah, so many things are possible if we were just able to take our textures and make them 3D via parallax, or something along those lines. So many things would be possible. Just getting like 2 inches of 3D stuff happening Sorry, something just happened in my apartment. It's nothing to be concerned about. But yeah, with just that little bit of extra depth, so many cool effects can be done. Because if you think about, like, all the... I hate to bring this up, but all the, like, Marvel Nanotech stuff, I know they overdo it quite a bit these days. But if you wanted to do it, like, all you would need is this on a regular object, just to make it so that, oh, the thing just disappeared completely. Can I forget. Did I make it so that... Oh, no, it can disappear. So I could literally make it so that this parts of it disappear. Which maybe I will try it. Let me give it a go. So let me take that, go into here. Where is the... Let's have the object info node. I'll just subtract from the height map. No, not the object info. Texture coordinate. Let's have it be the empty. Let's get the length to get the distance from there. And then I will subtract from that height map. I'll just prepare it. Let's make this a map range so that I can say, oh, from here, do this or do that. So I want it to subtract by 1 the closer you get to the center. So if we do hook up all of that, let's hide everything else. All the other sockets that are not needed. So like 0.5, and there we should see, when I move this around, okay, it needs to go down a little bit more. There we go. It disappears. Quite cool, is it not? Or you can make it so that, oh, the mesh just appears out of nothing. There is a base, like a base part of the mesh underneath there. So you could make it, if you wanted to, your suit just atomizes out of thin air. Hopefully in a better way than what I'm doing right now. Let me connect that to the previous... Oh no, I wouldn't subtract from it. But you get the gist of what's happening. How much RAM do I have? I currently have 16 gigabytes of RAM. Which actually, I've had 16 gigabytes for a while. I upgraded my computer, but I kept the same amount of RAM. I may upgrade it. I may need to, coming up soon. But we'll see. So far, it hasn't really been an issue since I don't, like, render huge cycles, scenes at once. But yeah, there you go. So if you ever wanted to do the Marvel trademark Nanotech appearing effect, you in theory could, as long as the camera does not get too close. But most of the time, you know, that won't be the issue, so there you go. Just forms into place. Just like that. But yes, I will say it once again, just to plug. This file, not the edits that I've made today, but the base file for this is up on Gumroad. It is paid, so just keep that in mind. But the free version of the shader displacement effect is also available on my Gumroad page. Link in the description. So with that little ad read out of the way, we can get back to testing with this. So yeah, I should try testing more and more things with this, because there is quite a bit that's possible with it. I'm just kind of hesitant to edit this too much, because I really like the design I have going. Let's set that to 25. So if I turn the roughness all the way down, it looks like, ooh, the paint is transforming the robot. If I turn it up even more, it starts to look like, oh, like almost, what are those called? Ferro fibers? The magnetic fibers. The magnetic dust. Yeah, it looks like that reforming. Which I guess could look very, very cool. But yeah, maybe I should play around with this more, because I can. And because, you know, I need to demonstrate. So let's start this from scratch. Yes, that seems to be a good idea. So let's take all this and reset it to scratch. Besides, you know, I'm just going to keep the principled, and then I'm going to keep it hooked up to the bump and then that. So let's move this over and let's start with a humble noise texture. Let's use a color ramp. Let's plug it into the end result. Whoops. Sorry about that. Plug it in. Let me turn on grid snapping. So here we can see, ooh, there's 3D stuff happening here. It's a little difficult to see. Let me turn that up a bit more. So there you can see, the texture is actually three-dimensional. Isn't that lovely? Let me also, I'll have another color ramp just so that I can edit the actual color of this over time, or over the thing. There we go. That's looking a little bit worse, so let's scale it up. Interesting. Another thing I did with the previous one to make it look better was I had a snap node. So let's just do that. So basically make the layers super concrete, which may not be a good idea. Let's set it to like 0.01. Kind of looks cool, but too much detail. Actually, no. Okay, let's get rid of that and just have that happening. Let's set the distortion to 0. Let's add in a vector math multiply node so that I can scale this texture effectively. There we go, so let's scale it up there. So here we can see, let's scale it up a bit more like that. So more detail. No, let's go with a Voronoi. Voronoi lends itself better to this kind of hard surface design. So let's plug that in. That's looking much better already. There we go. So already you get this very interesting hard surface look. There we go. It's not, you know, super incredible, but it's interesting. Let's do that. Let's set this back to 0.5 so that you get that kind of star design. Let's scale it up again. There we go. And now I want to, let me move this part over a bit. Actually, let's take a look at the gradient. I think I may need to extend it so that it doesn't clip as much. Yeah, let's divide it by a little bit, just so that if there's more data above that... there we go, okay. So now we can see all the nice hard surface details there. This just kind of sets the range to be a bit further, because it seems that this goes above 1, the distance value. It's too bright. So let me scale this down even further now that we can do that. Let's put in a floor for it. Yeah, I think that looks good. It's a little strong for my liking. So maybe let me try a little more than that. Put that part up so that there's a little bit of bevel at the end. Still coming off a bit strong, but I think that's good for now. So I could add in like the red coloring or anything like that, but let's make the offset pattern happen. So let's add in a vector math add node. And now what we need to do is let's get a value in here that evolves over time. So I'll put in hashtag frame so that this updates according to the frame number, which is nice. It does its job. It starts off dark and then it gets brighter over time, but then I'm going to use a divide node. There we go, divide. Let's set this to like 100 so that it'll get brighter slower. So if I were to say use a multiply node, this would move, and let's set that on the y-axis. This will, whoops, let's set the end result. This will move the texture over time. But the question is, what would happen if I were to say snap the offset of this? That part. If you're wondering why I'm misclicking so much, is that today is the day I transitioned from left click select into right click select to left click select. I joined Blender back in the 2.7 days, so right click select was the default, and that's what I used. But now I have successfully transitioned to left click select. It wasn't that difficult. But my muscle memory still gives up a little bit. So if I snap this, you can see that it changes more choppy. Snap basically means, oh, make it choppy instead of a smooth gradient, which is interesting. But what if, instead of making it transition like that all the time, we made it so that it was only according to part of the gradient? So to do that, ooh, do I do this before or after? Let's use a separate XYZ. Let's add it to our, this could be like our time gradient. So let me put that there. So let me make this a little bit smaller so that we just have that in frame, but we can see everything else. As you can see, it's not the most complicated thing just yet. We're already getting semi-usable results. So let's put in an add node after the snap. Let's multiply this. I may have to put the add before, I'm not entirely sure, but let's take a look. So if we set this to like 1. Yeah, seems to be a little bit of an issue. Yeah, so it probably needs to go before. So let's do that, and hopefully it works. If not, then I'll have to come up with another plan to do it, but it should work. There we go, okay. Now we can see that it's now getting offset even more due to the gradient being part of it. But if I set to like 0.1, it happens really fast. If I set to something like 4, it's slower because the gradient literally gets multiplied. So that's how you make it transition like that over time. Let's set it to 0.5. I think that will be a good point for it. Let me turn off another result of this file being 2 years old at this point. I used the color correction to turn it from an orangey color to a blue. Not recommended, but I guess me from 2 years ago, and I haven't upgraded it or changed that since. Which I probably should. But now that we're going over it now, it's fine. So now that we have this, we have, you know, the basics of the effect. But now let's add in a little bit of flair to it. Let's set that to 1. Let's also slow it down a bit more so that we can see the effect happening even more. Or, yeah, let's set this to 400. So that's even slower. So now what we can do, and let's add in the little bit of flair, which is from the UV map. They have to be labeled due to the bug in Blender, which may be fixed in 3.5, I don't know. Let's set the noise texture to be 2 dimensions, and then multiply the output so that we can say, hey, how much do you want this to affect it? And now that we do this, we can see that the gradient is now a little bit warbled. If we multiply it by a lot, or scale it up, we can see the pattern being more and more effective. There we go. So let's turn up the detail. And maybe the roughness as well. So now it looks like, you know, the kind of sand look that we had before. But there's another little issue at play. Well, let's set the distortion to 0.5. And that current problem is that you know, it still looks very static. It doesn't look good enough for my refined standards. So how will we amend this? Well, let's make it so that the lower gradients move at a different rate than the higher gradients. So let's add in another add node. Let's input the attribute, which in geometry nodes, the layers have a gradient assigned to all of their layers. So let's do that, gradient. If we take a look at the factor, we should see, if I spelled it correctly, that the lower ones are darker than the lighter ones. You could just barely see it because of the angle, I apologize. So the lower ones are a lower value, and the higher ones are a higher value. So if we take that and then multiply it to change the effectiveness of it, and then plug it into the add node, we take a look at the output, and we should see that the effect happens differently according to the kind of layer that is there. You could kind of see it, but it's a little lackluster. I think that's because the gradient doesn't move enough. Which brings me to another point that I need to change. We need to make this look a bit better, because the color doesn't change. And to switch up the colors, we'll just take the gradient that goes up over time and plug it into a white noise texture. White noise texture, just one dimension is all that's needed. But now we can see as this changes, it'll give us a random value per step, in quotes. We could take advantage of that. We could use a color ramp. And then we could, here, let's just give it like wild colors for all of these, just to make it extremely varied. So we'll do that and then have it be to that as well, so that we get that color scheme. So I'll pick a random version of that for each one. Then for here, I'll just add in a mix RGB node, set it to color, and have that color go into the main one. Let's plug that into there, turn up the color all the way. Let's take a look at the output. 92. Let's organize this a little bit more so that's not as confusing. Control J. Yeah, that seems to be pretty good. There we go. So let's do that. Put that there. I do want to put all these in a frame, even though it, it kind of looks a little bit odd, but I'll allow it. And we can, if you're not seeing enough, like, change with all that, you could just turn up the offset there. Now we can see as it transitions from one color to another, it's more gradual over time. Ooh, I like that color. Let's turn down the... Oh, the roughness is too high. There we go. That's why it was looking a little bit odd. But yes, it still seems that there's a little bit of an issue, which I think is from the gradient being... There we go, okay. That makes it look quite a bit better. And the noise texture is not quite the best, so let's turn down that. Turn up the distortion by a bit. Put that part up. There we go. The colors are still a little too similar for my liking, so let's go and... There we go. Noise, yeah, let's switch this to a Voronoi. Set it to 2 dimensions, plug that into there, and delete that. There we go, let's let it cook for a little bit longer. So now if I scale it up... Oh, let's change this to Mikowski. And there, it's way too effective. So let's tone it down a bit, or let's change it to the square method. So that now, and let's change the color palette. The color palette has been annoying me a little bit, if you can't tell. There we go. So I think I can scale this up to like 300. And then change this to be like 0.5. And then like 0.02. There we go. Now we get a very nice look with that happening, changing the appearance of the 3D layers, which looks very nice. And again, you could change the pattern of the height and such. As we can see here, this is the current pattern that I have going. It's alright, but maybe I want to switch it up a little bit. So let's... Wait a second. I need to think a little bit. If I change this to this version, there's a little trick that I did a while ago. Because if I use a noise texture, I can get a gradient like this from the center, which may look really good or really bad. Hey, but, oh, let's change it to 1 dimension of noise instead of that many. Let's have a new color ramp for here. And now let's plug this into there. Take a look at the output. Interesting. A little bit much, once again. That seems to be a common issue. There we go. Kind of like that. Kind of... Does it look a bit like circuits? Oh no, wait. Is the UV map getting offset enough? It technically is. You could see the different patterns doing different things. Let me change this back to its regular, rather square form. Nope, let's go back to the original. So, Chepichev. I have very weird names for the Voronoi textures, so my apologies. There we go. So if you want like the cool motion graphic effects, that's how you would do it. No, I'm not getting the structure I would like with this. It's close, but not quite. That's kind of cool. I like that. Well, it's kind of scaled up a bit more than I would like, but not bad. Oh, Manhattan, that's the one, I think. Let's see, let's take a look over here, set all of these to 1 again. There you go. So if we look at the, standard UV plane here, we can see the effect happening, and let's switch the layer offset to there so you can see it kind of grow into place again. If I set to negative, oh, it looks like it kind of falls into place. Interesting. Now if I set that to 0, it looks very smooth. Cool. So let's take a look at, how do we make this look good? It's interesting. Hard surface designs. Procedural ones are never the easiest thing to do, but it's very, very interesting. A very round appearance for nanotechnology, but pretty cool, once again. But I do like linear more. Ooh, wait a second. If the pattern is too small, then you don't really see the transition that happens. So let me make this down, up, down, like the, not like it, nope. It's like 3. There we are. And also, one thing I haven't done yet is I can multiply the kind of gradient offset texture. So let's go and put that there. So let's scale this up by a bit, but only on one axis. So that gives us a very interesting layer effect, but if we do on axis, we get this kind of, that kind of effect happening. Pretty cool. Yeah, the color scheme, again, I don't think it could... Oh! Kind of like that. Kind of. I can make this shinier in appearance. There we go. still, the form that I have here just still isn't quite feeling right. As right as it should. So let's go and change that up a bit more. Yeah, still not quite. So let's bring this over to more, just like that. It looks pretty much the same. Yeah, maybe more of an orange hue, but that would look better. Ooh. Yeah, not too bad. Not too shabby. Switch it to there. Let's see. I could also scale this up even more so that becomes like molecular in the style. But yeah, I think I'll leave the stream there. We're coming up on an hour, but I don't want to go over an hour. So I may end it there. Thank you all for watching. Hopefully you were able to learn something from this project. Again, it's an old project, but I reposted it because I didn't have anything for yesterday. And people still really love it. I guess quite a few of the new followers of mine didn't know that effect existed. But yeah. Thank you all for watching. And I'll see if there are any last questions, but yeah. It's wind down time. I will be prepared. Ooh. That one actually looks okay. Yeah, look at that. You know, not the most amazing, but not bad. Maybe I should have put like a mid-level in there. Like this. If I get something that looks really good on the last, like, little part of the stream, I would be like, oh man, but not the worst. Not the worst. It kind of looks cool. And again, you could use your own custom textures on there. Will this stream stay up? It will. Nothing went wrong, and I think this could be very valuable education for this. Even though I should show the shader shell displacement, I'll just show a brief part of the node internals, just so that, you know, for posterity's sake, if the gumroad goes down or something like that. Here, let me show it off in full. So it's not that complicated. Just change the geometry to instance and then duplicate it by keep the ID, and then I set it. I realize the instances, then offset them according to the gradient, which I set as a named attribute. Then when I offset to there, and then it makes layers offset. Pretty understandable, I would think. Like, especially if I hide those. There you go. So if you want to make it yourself, you can. But again, this is the shader shell technique, the EV shader displacement technique, is up on Gumroad for free. The robot, not this edited version, but the robot is up on Gumroad, but it is paid. So if you would like to pick up either one of those, the link will be in the description for my Gumroad page. So yes, hopefully you guys all enjoyed, and now that this is out on the internet forever, hopefully people can use it. Because I know that my Twitter, even though it's larger than my YouTube, it's a bit limited. And also, just to show off what this part does, you could change the layers that are spawned in from that, you could change the layer distance, the general offset, and the distance multiplier. This is made to be used with like a vertex group if you want. But yeah, I will see you all next time. Have a good night.